Yes, Sarah.
Hey there.
How you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. How are you?
Good, good. You're looking very cozy.
Well, it's just woke up a bit ago, got my coffee ready. A little bit of a stuck. Yeah, you know what? My internet might go out a little bit here and there. I've noticed we've been having issues here at home, so there might be a bit of a lag every once in a while.
Oh, no worries. We get that as well. The wind is blowing in the wrong direction today, which means that my internet sometimes can't handle the fight, but we'll persevere. We'll persevere.
Oh yeah. Is there anything you need me to do specifically?
No, this is just the opportunity to learn more about your work with Atoot, and then kind of, I guess, a bit more in detail how you found yourself in that landscape, really, just to put some context
Yeah.
to the work.
Okay.
So, for anyone listening, what would be a great start, I guess, is to if you could explain what a two is, and
Okay.
then we'll work backwards from that.
Sure. Right. So Atoot is a sport for development, football for good, grassroots nonprofit that is based in the very south of Nepal in the rural villages, right near to the Nepali Indian border. And our grassroots organization, we use the power of opportunity for having equitable sporting and educational opportunities, and through the power of sport, which for us is football, and for those North Americans slash Australians, that's soccer. But I do use the term football because I've been living outside of the US for so long. I'm used to that term more than I am soccer now. But yeah, so we use the power of football to essentially give opportunities to marginalized Nepali girls.
Fantastic. Um, and if I understood this correctly, this is relatively new, like within the past 5-ish years. Would that be right?
Correct. A toot was the concept of a toot, and that we were going to do this started in 2018. That would be about July or early August of 2018. I was in rural Kenya, the north part of Kenya. It's a region called Masrabit. It's again a region where a lot of people, are marginalized, very cut off from the world, even within Kenya itself. I was working for a different Football for Good organization in rural Kenya at that point, and this would have been maybe almost 7 years into already working within other Football for Good, sport for development organizations across the globe. I just got to a point one night where I decided I was ready to do my own thing, start my own grassroots nonprofit. And my mind kept thinking, well, I don't want to do this in my home country of the US. I've not lived in the US since I was 22, and I've been living abroad, especially within very underdeveloped, not for the lack of people wanting it, but underdeveloped for the many other reasons, countries, and especially within very rural areas. And so I know, and I had seen how little opportunity there were for girls in so many aspects across the board. And my mind kept going, where can we start something that is really going to be beneficial for girls who have never had opportunities? Well, the US is, of course, there are many issues across the US, but for me, that wasn't where I wanted to be. On the flip side, I also didn't want to go to a country that was not my own without having an equal partner who is from the country, understands culture, society, language, government, etc. And because that is, for me, it's not the right thing in my mind to have myself go into a country not my own and do something. I would much rather have a leader within, a co-founder within that country. So I kept thinking, who might I want to work with that would be equally invested? And my mind kept going back to a friend of mine who I had previously worked with in India. This would have been around 2013. I previously worked with him in India. I kept thinking, wow, this guy is so amazing when I first met him. I never met somebody like this. And he's from Nepal. And I always knew he wanted to go back to his country at some time and start an organization that uses football for good for girls. So I called him up in the middle of the night when I was working in rural Kenya. I proposed this idea. At the time, we had no name for it, but I proposed doing something in his home country together equally, co-founders. He takes the side of, making sure it's at grassroots level, making sure we're looking through all the localized lenses. And that is not just localized lenses. We have to look through every single layer within those lenses because there are so many layers you have to break down when you are working in a very different area. Even for him, the area we work in now, it's a very different compared to what he's used to. So making sure we have that localized lens always. And he said, that's actually, I've just been waiting for you to ask me, which was really special for me because we've been friends for a while. I had tried to help him start an organization 2 years prior, maybe not even 2 years prior, maybe a year prior to start something in his own country. He never followed through with that. And I couldn't be sure why that was, but later on we can discuss maybe why. But so he said, I've just been waiting for you to ask. And with that, Atoot was born in 2018. Pardon the long-winded, very broken up answer to your question.
No, the more you speak, the better. No one wants to listen to me. You're the person of interest. So that the more answers like that, the better, Sarah. Really.
My brain will literally stop on a dime and turn to something else because I'm like, I missed a spot, I missed a quick key moment, shoot, and then I forget where I'm supposed to go. So please feel free to re-guide me at any point if you find me very off topic.
That's the beauty of a conversation, right? We never know quite where it's going to go. Well, I guess one curiosity from that is how you found yourself in Kenya in the first place. I know you've just explained a lot about the foundation of Atoot, but for somebody who's lived a relatively pedestrian life in many respects, it's quite exciting for me to hear someone like you say you just found yourself in Kenya and you needed a change. And for most people, just being there and not the US would be the change. But I get the impression that there are a few stamps in your passport, should we say? So,
Yes.
How do you get from the US to Nepal via Kenya and God knows where else?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Well, then I guess we have to go back quite some ways. I guess my journey outside of the US didn't really start until I was 19 years old. So for clarity, I'm 39 now. And when I was 19, I was just finishing my freshman year of university. My mom came to me and she basically said, Sarah, you're going to go study abroad this summer in Italy. I was like, okay, why? My mom is very global, outwardly looking, and we've done a lot of travel growing up, but it was always North America or the Caribbean. So for me, as a very typical, let's say, American mentality, you don't even consider what is out there in this world because you are raised to be quite insular here, to be honest. I'm come from Iowa, especially. Iowa's in the middle of America. Most people know of it as farmland. which it is. It's very much true. It's a huge part of the U.S.'s agricultural system. But I grew up in a town in Iowa. We are quite global because we have a lot of global companies. Probably the biggest this audience would know is John Deere. John Deere is from my hometown area, and the global headquarters is here. I mean, so it is not so insular where I'm from, let's say, but the way we are raised in the US within all of our interconnective systems is we do get an insular feeling. And with the travels that my family and I did growing up, it was very great and amazing, but it was never outside North America and or the Caribbean. So finally my mom said, "You're going to go study abroad." I said, "Great, why?" And she's like, "You can't study abroad during the regular school year because I was on scholarship at university for golf. Thus, I'm not able
Wow.
to take off a semester, but summer abroad I could do." Mom signed me up for the summer abroad, and I landed in Rome. At my university has a campus in Rome, so I landed there in Rome. My other friend on the golf team, she came with me. "This is a great idea. We can't study abroad with our scholarships during semester. Let's do the summer." We were the youngest study abroads at that time. We were only 19. And we got there. It was a 6-month study abroad, or excuse me, 6-week study abroad, which opened my eyes up to a world I had no idea existed. Like, Rome exists. People outside the world exist. But being in Rome and seeing everything is just a whole new experience. And then not on top of that, meeting loads of people across the world who are also in Rome because they're working, living, studying, whatever, traveling. I also learned I speak 0 languages besides my mother tongue, which was really sad and disappointing to realize I'm the only one around here speaking one language. I knew very little about the global world, global politics, I mean, countries, everything, as to where all these other people I met in Italy knew everything about the US as if it was yeah, of course I know that. Okay. Wow. I didn't even know about some of these countries before. It just opened my mind up to a realization that maybe my education is not what we are all taught it to be. Maybe it's actually, might I say, without this becoming such a thing, it might not be actually the best education we can get. And so for me, that was my first open up to the world. And every weekend I traveled like crazy. I went as many places in Europe I could go. Our university also had 2 weekend trips for us to take throughout Italy. I just fell in love with seeing the world, meeting people, knowing different languages, cultures, societies, religions. And then after that summer abroad study, I knew immediately I need to see more of this world. And every time I had a spring break or summer break or some type of break within my university for the 3 years after, I would sprint off to Europe and on my own and just see the world as I could for the little bit of time I had. And finally, when I was 22, I graduated university and I moved to Italy. For a week later, I moved to Italy. Never spoke the language. Do not have a clue, about anything other than I'm moving to Italy. I'm learning a language, and I will do something to figure out how to get going with my life. It will come to me. But I didn't move to Italy to say right away, thinking, I'm not going to have a job or anything. Ironically, I was working with an Italian film production company because they came to Iowa when I was 21 years old, and they filmed a production in my hometown. That film production company actually had filmed several films in my hometown when I was very young, very, very young. And my grandparents got to be really good friends with the producer and director brothers. And so when they came back when I was 21, my grandparents reintroduced them to me. And my grandma made an off-the-cuff comment: "You should hire my granddaughter if you want somebody who can just get everything done for you in this town." and it was summertime, so I was able to do such. So they laughed and said, "You're hired." And I remember I got home from university, and the production coordinator of that film called me right when I got home and said, "Hey, you're starting work this next week." I said, "For what?" "Well, the film, the Italian film." "Oh, right. That was a real conversation. Okay, sounds great." So I worked in the film in Iowa when I was 21, and at the end of that time, all they'd heard was me talking about how I always wanted to learn Italian, move to Italy, etc. And they said, "Well, if you do, let us know, because we're always in production. They do one film a year, two films a year, and then a lot of other things. So we have work, and we like your work ethic." I told them I wanted to move to Italy, and they said, "Okay, come to Italy then. Well, you'll definitely work with our film production company, no problem." So that was another aspect of me going to Italy as well, on top of wanting to learn the language and etc. Spent 4 years in Italy, worked in film production in Italy, started working for film production actually back in the US as well, because at that point, Iowa was becoming a film production hub. And my father, he's a lawyer, and with that law, with his work, he was incorporating film production companies in Iowa. And then, of course, word of mouth. "Oh, your daughter has worked in film production. She's from here. She knows everything." And so I was getting called back to start doing films in Iowa as well. So I would do back and forth on productions. But it's not my passion, film production. And I couldn't figure out what my passion was. I studied sociology and criminal justice in university, and I thought those were fascinating, but I never worked in it, out of it. And finally, I just was like, I need to figure out this world around me. I was so fascinated by meeting so many different people that I decided I wanted to do a master's in international peace studies. I applied for a master's in international peace studies, and I applied for a master's of peace and conflict resolution from Trinity College Dublin. I chose to do international peace studies at Trinity College Dublin, and I got my master's there. So I did a year master's program there, for which that opened up my world even more, to where I could never imagine, all this conflict throughout the world from the past and still today. Everything I learned and all the small intricacies of development world, and unfortunately the non-best work of development world, for lack of better word, it was fascinating to me. And so from that master's program, I had an internship in London for a small grassroots organization that worked within peace and conflict resolution at the very grassroots, localized levels within all the Balkan regions during the Balkan Civil War. And these two people, there was just two people who were in charge of this organization. They, from what I understand it, and they've told me, and I've researched, they were able to make more peace within all the different sects of the Balkans than any UN organization was, than any, a large organization, nonprofit, government, whatever, because they were working at the grassroots level. They were the ones doing the real hard work of bringing people together and gaining trust. And both of them, they are both of Balkan descent. So it really opened my eyes up to this grassroots level of doing things, which we're not taught about at all, to be fair, within the global development world. You hear about UNICEF, you hear about Save the Children, World Relief, any UN branch. You don't hear about these super small grassroots nonprofits that are so deep in the localized levels working, because they're the ones that don't have the funding. They don't have the staff, resources, PR. They're just doing the work and moving onwards with the people themselves in the regions. And so I was fascinated by how amazing they were. And I realized grassroots nonprofits is where I always wanted to be from that. Being a sports person myself my entire life, I've grown up on sports. I'm obsessed with sports. Football especially was always my passion. I always kept wondering how sports can, tie into all this, but I was never taught about it back then. And I remember one day I was doing some research for the organization I worked for in London, because they asked me to start researching about boat refugees. And this would be in 2011 when I was researching for them about boat refugees, because it was starting to become bigger and bigger from North Africa. And so I was digging deep into the boat refugees, where they're coming from. And I found a lot of them were coming from Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. And I was researching Kakuma refugee camp. And within that, I saw once, of course, UNICEF brought in, I think it was David Beckham. They brought in David Beckham to do, a Goodwill ambassador trip, blah, 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 which I wasn't too interested in. But the part I was interested in was reading about the fact that he did a hour or two session with just the kids of the refugee camp of just playing football. And from those photos, from the brief interviews with the children, I could see how impactful just that 1 or 2 hours of playing football was for them, taking away from their monotonous, I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for, day.
Monotonous.
Yes.
I got you.
Thank you. Taking away from that day, giving them something different, and how happy it made them. I thought, whoa, where is this aspect of the development world? I was like, is there anyone using sport? And at that time, there was no word for it, no phrase for it. Is anyone using sport for good or sport for development? So I Googled football, development, girl empowerment, because I've always been very into girl empowerment. Obviously, a very strong feminist here. Why shouldn't we all have equal opportunities? And the first thing that popped up was this thing in India. I said, whoa, they're using football to give opportunities to marginalized girls who have never had. This is amazing. Make a very long story short, I started working in India. And then from India, I went to another similar organization in Cambodia. After Cambodia, I worked for an organization in the Philippines. After the Philippines, I worked for an organization in Haiti. After Haiti, I worked for an organization, which is U.S. It is U.S. registered, but our work was in Jordan at that time. And I'm still a part of this sisterhood organization till today. From Jordan, Kenya came, and then Kenya obviously brought on Nepal. And there is, again, another long-winded, crazy response. Excuse me.
That is fascinating to me. And it all began from the very first segment of that answer, where you began with golf scholarship. And it blows my mind how a golf scholarship kind of gets you to meet the limitations of that scholarship, restrict you to a summer break to Italy, which leads you to Nepal in an indirect way. That's kind of blown my mind a little bit, especially seeing as you mentioned, such an insular place where you are to a degree, and now your life is anything but. So it sounds like, leaving the US for that summer definitely ignited something that was latent in you, and there was no going back really, which I guess explains why some 17 years have passed and you've barely touched US soil in that time. Do you feel a detachment to your home nation now as a result of that, out of curiosity?
Did you say detachment?
Yeah, because you mentioned that you didn't want to it didn't feel like an option to begin a project like Atoot in the US. Does that stem from a sense of detachment from your homeland? Yeah.
Yes. It's very hard realizing all the immense privileges that we have in this part of the world, because we have immense privileges, and yet there are so many, from my point of view, there's so many downfalls in our systems here in the US, such as we don't have global health care. We do not have good good government. My English is sometimes really poor because I don't talk it very often. a good, what's the word I'm looking for? Government's mandated paternity and maternity leave. We don't have politicians working for us, which I understand is everywhere as well. Don't get me wrong. However, especially being in Europe, where gun culture does not really exist, and how awful gun culture has become in the US, which I don't believe is because there are bad people who, you know, who desperately want their guns. I think it's the whole concept has been weaponized from a long time ago. And the way they put it forward in the media makes people think that we're trying to take something from them. And that First Amendment right really sticks to them. And all I think about is, instead of focusing on one thing, can't everyone just take a step back and go, these amendments were made 1864. Guns were not semi-automatic, full automatic, what they are today. Assault rifles, assault machine guns. Those are what they were defending themselves with back in those days. And today, this world has changed, and capitalism has overtaken especially our country. Do we really need these machine? Does everyone really need a full machine gun as a normal thing? No, you don't. I mean, okay, if you're a hunter and you want to go hunting and that's it, well, I have never had an issue with that. But why on earth should any of us have all these guns? What purpose does it serve? And as we can see in this world, and I say we because everyone throughout the world can see, the US has a huge issue with guns. I want to believe that everyone at the end of the day would want to protect children, especially children who are being killed all the time. But the detachment and the weaponization of the way in which the media speaks about guns has really, it's taken away from what the US, in my opinion, should be. It should just be a country that is very, for everyone, but it's not. It's everyone's against everyone. And the way the gun culture is, and of course because we don't have globalized healthcare, people don't have access to mental health care. And mental health care is huge. It is one of the most important aspects of healthcare. Okay, mental health care is healthcare. And if we can't get access to mental health care, people, myself included, have a very hard time making their brains work, because mental health care is essentially like a heartbeat. Your brain is going like this, the waves are going, and if we are having mental health issues, our waves are detached, and we can't think correctly because of all this detachment. And when you have this type of pressure coming from this way, and the media and people in your circles and the way you grew up, I can understand why people just burst out and, go crazy. They should absolutely never be going and killing people, but everything is very much integrated and systematically. If we don't fix these things, in my opinion, there's no fixing of our nation. And since what I have seen growing up and still today, that's never going to happen. That really detached me from the US. I just don't understand having guns everywhere. And I remember once I was in my supermarket, this was a couple years back, I was in the vegetable aisle picking up some vegetables for my mom, and this guy comes next to me to grab something, and he had this massive gun holstered right there in his belt, and I didn't notice it till I went to turn around and walk away. And as I turned around and walked away, there's this gun literally right next to my body, and it scared the bejesus out of me. I mean, just blew my mind, because this is just an everyday individual with a massive, massive gun hanging out in his pocket. And for me, that is where I have a huge detachment from the US. I don't like that. And also there are many issues, of course, but that and globalized healthcare, we pay taxes. And unfortunately, in my opinion, our taxes go to creating greater, worse, awful things around the world, as I'm sure many people can understand what I'm referring to. We just make things so much worse and create atrocities that should not happen. And I'm sure there might be people here thinking I'm putting down the U.S. I'm not here to put down the U.S. I've just become more aware from being outside of the U.S., having discussions with multiple people who have opened my eyes to something that I've never been open to before. And that all those layers has helped me understand different things and also understand why, the U.S. is as it is. It kind of reminds me of the work I do across the world. You can't just go in somewhere and think you're going to fix something like that. You have generations of systematic roadblocks and ways of being that have been there way before you that are the norms. So you have to start somewhere, and it's a grassroots, gradual, every single day, yearly, decadely work. That's pretty much the same here. If we really want to get to the bottom of where we are, you have to go back decades and really understand before, and then you have to start from there and work. And so if you have 50 years against you, I say you need at least 25 years of work to try to equal that out. I think my understanding of things is so different than a lot of people here, and people will think I'm crazy and weird here, and that's fine. I understand.
It makes perfect sense.
They might think that, but I can at least have an open mind and opinion about something. And whereas I find I don't find a lot of that, at least in some parts of the US. I can't say everywhere, of course, but it's a struggle. It's an internal struggle for me. And best said is I feel better outside of the US.
Yeah, it makes complete sense what you're saying there. It's easy. The same is probably true for anyone's view of their nation from within it, right? We're not kind of we're looking through the lens that we're given. Your work has given you a different perspective outside of the narratives that the media kind of feed us. So you see it in a different light, and as you put it, you have a wider perspective. And my own country would no doubt give me something to shiver about if I was to view it through a different lens. Completely understandable. If I may go back to your point on mental health, that's a really interesting one. What I'm curious about is so being of service is something that's come up a lot lately in these conversations, and the value to the individual being of service. So could you tell me, if possible, what impact the work you've done over the years has had on you? And as an extension of that, and I'm happy to sit here and listen for as long as this answer may be, the impact that you've seen your work have on young girls in these communities that you're working with.
Ooh, so please guide me back on if I'm going off topic, because it will happen. Well, okay. Let's see. Great question. I think the short answer is probably when I first started working in sport for development, football for good organizations in 2012 or 2011. Yes, 2011. I don't know. My timelines are so messed up. Whoa, we're in 2024 now. Okay, excuse me. When I first started working in football for good organizations in Yeah, anyhow, sometime. Whoa, there goes the phone.
We got you.
I think my first idea was, oh, I'm gonna impact them so much and I'm gonna give them so much. In reality, the moment I got to India, it was very, very clear I learned so much more from them than I ever feel I could give to them. And this for me is very, very important because, again, I do think there is the good we want to do, right? We want to, we want to do good across the world. There's that mindset. And then I think there's maybe a checking ourselves mindset and going, well, why is it that we think we have to do good? Why can't we receive good as well? So
Okay.
I believe in, doing good and being a good person, but because I've worked so deeply across the world in areas that others don't necessarily go to, and or if they do, and I do mean more of the westernized North American, European type people, they kind of think I'm going to come and give my solutions and this is going to be it. Everything's going to be perfect, which is the wrong mentality. There are no solutions from what I know and have done here or in Italy or in England or in Ireland or in India that works in Philippines, that works in Haiti, that works in rural Kenya. So it was what I feel I've learned most and taken from most of my work is that what I have known and what I think I can give, I should take and set behind me and look at where I am, how the people there are doing it. What can I bring from my knowledge and experiences to interact with that localized approach in its most valuable way for the benefit of those there? And how can those benefits then create an ecosystem that we keep developing through opportunities and opportunities and opportunities? I think that would be my biggest takeaway. I feel like I'm a better, more knowledgeable person coming to these discoveries working across the world. Because for a long time, I kept thinking, come on, just do it this way. Come on, this is better, etc. But it's not. How can it be better if they've never done something in such a way before? They've never seen such an approach before. It's taught me that I need to set away all what I think is right and just allow those who have the knowledge, understanding, and experience within their own localized approaches to lead and allow me to learn. So that's been my greatest learning experience from working across all these sport for development, football for good world. And then on the flip side, what are the benefits for the girls I've worked with across the world and in Nepal as well? It's the building of ecosystems, the building of safe space, feminists, and I mean feminists in all the great ways. Everybody's a feminist who supports equitable and equal rights for girls and women. So, creating these safe spaces and building an ecosystem of empowered girls and women is the single greatest thing, because if they've never had such a space before, if they've never seen people continuously working together to grassroots develop one another and their communities, then when they have that and they see it working every day, they just take it so strongly, make it their own, continue to build it, and keep everything at a localized perspective, which is really, 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 really special. Because I think back to any situation I've been in before, growing up. And I think it's because of having those ecosystems, those safe spaces with strong women, strong girls, strong people who are able to speak up and then build your own capacity, build your own fortitude, build your own mindfulness. That allowed me to become stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's happened over the years. I mean, that continues to happen today for me. All my, own ecosystems just make me stronger and stronger. And, I've built on those throughout the years. It's not something that I had before always. So safe spaces, ecosystems of empowered girls and women, for me, is a huge, huge, huge legacy and foundation to keep building on within this work, and how I believe it takes, especially girls and women, at least in the areas I've worked in. I don't want to speak for the rest of the world, but the girls and women in the areas I've worked in, and also for myself, I have seen how powerful that is and how impactful it will be to keep growing a healthy society. And that can just, maybe that doesn't reach to the middle intermediate levels. Maybe it doesn't reach to the top government levels, but what they're creating in their society, in their little communities, at their localized level, is creating change. And that change is benefiting so many in a trickle down effect.
And it could always spread out, I guess, as well, right? You can't change the world all at once, but if you're changing these young girls' lives, who's to know where one of those moves on to, and the influences that they've picked up from their experiences there can be used to good effect wherever their life takes them, right? So that is that the trickle down effect that you're referring to, not just in the community that they're in, generation down to generation, but if any of those then move on to different parts of the world, or even if it's just a community 50 miles away, it's having a positive impact somewhere down the line.
It's massive, and it has been doing that. All of the organizations I worked for prior, and you just cannot even imagine how so many of these girls who are now young women I worked with have gone on to have lives that you can never imagine. And that would be a whole 5 more hours of talking, but a quick little rundown would be back then, a very young woman in Cambodia who I worked with, she was trafficked to Thailand when she was 12 or 11, I can't remember, by unfortunately, her own family. And when she was trafficked to Thailand, she was essentially a slave to a woman for, I can't remember how many months, and then, beaten every day, psychologically, mentally, physically. And her sister was also trafficked with her. And then they escaped. Finally, one day they couldn't take it anymore, and they escaped and essentially walked from wherever they were in Thailand back to the Cambodian border. Well, essentially they were put into a house for children who'd been trafficked. And from that came this opportunity to be a part of a Football for Good organization in Cambodia many, many years ago. Joined this organization, and then fast forward how many years, I think she was 18 or 19 when I got to that organization. She had gone from not talking after the experience of being trafficked for a whole year to playing football, to then getting an education she had never had before, to having opportunities to learn how to be a football coach, how to be a referee, etc. That opportunity led her to start working within the organization itself. And then she started developing her footballing skills, and that organization also has lots of opportunities, such as Atoot does, where our young colleagues can go off and do these festivals, conferences, etc., across the world that are Sport for Good festivals. And then from that, all these other little opportunities, you have cross-cultural relations, people coming in and, teaching them more things, and or them going out and learning more things. And now, fast forward, I think she's about 28 and 8 years old. She works for, I think she's a high up member within the Cambodian Football Association, which this never would have happened ever. And, these are little things. There are many young girls who are now young women. The organization I worked with in India, they never had schooling before this organization. And today, so many of them are at university across the world and in India, and they are flourishing. One of them I'm actually going to go see next week in Boston because she has a full scholarship to Harvard University. I mean, these are girls that English is not even their third language. They speak their tribal dialect, then they speak Hindi, they maybe have another tribal dialect, and then they're, English. There's so many more I can say, and this also happens within Atoot. Also, these girls, before we started working for them, have never touched a football, have never played any type of sport ever, because they're not allowed to. Their sole job is to stay in the house and do nothing. But we don't look at that society and go, this is a bad society. We understand that this is a society that has never shown a different way of girls and women working, having fun, etc. It's just those cultural types of norms, right? And we also, as they've developed over the years, I mean, what women in England were banned to play from, I can't remember what year to what year of football.
Yeah,
That's
it's a 50-year
crazy.
ban. Yeah.
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 So you have to, I find a lot of global development doesn't look at the real grassroots, deep down reasons for things. And that's where development lacks. That's why it lacks. And I think if you really look at the grassroots organizations that are so deeply intertwined into the communities, such as ours, such as our many others I've known, have worked for, and still have deep ties to across the world, these are the people making a huge, huge difference. And it's not just the people of the organizations, it's the communities and the girls themselves, because what they're taking with these equitable opportunities, they're making it their own, because they're like, yes, we can do this. We want to do this. We realize this is better for everybody. And little by little, with the strong developmental work within the organizations across the world, such as the ones I've worked with, and for Atoot, you build these community relations to where you really get to understand them deep, deep down. We every day do community engagement, every single day. And if we were just another organization, especially a larger, development organization, they just come in, don't listen to the people. If they listen to the people, it's just like, okay, I heard you, but I'm not going to do that. And then they peace out. We sit down, listen to them, ask questions, understand more and more the mentality, the deep, deep seated ways in which they've done things before, so we can understand where we go from there. But our approach is so simplistic and so localized that we just take what we know, what we learn every day, and we make sure we deploy our programmings in ways that appreciates the societies, the cultures, everything they are, and yet shows a different way in a respectful manner. We just have girls playing football. It's okay. They're playing football in their traditional wears every day. They can wear whatever they want. It's up to them. We don't force them to wear anything, and they never, ever, change their ways if they don't want to. They want to wear their kurta and a sari. Perfect. Let's go play. We never look down at how things are, as people try to tell us, well, this is not how it should be. Well, it's like, we could say the same about many countries across the world, but let's just focus on what we can give and the opportunities that we can avail, and see what happens from there. And what we know and what we have done is, the way we have done it is, in my opinion, a very good approach that I'm very proud of, because we go from the localized approach. I don't lead. My co-founder, Mashrib, he doesn't lead. We have all young women who are our colleagues. They are our leaders in the field. So we have Nepalese young women, and we have 2 Indian young women. They work for us. And they are our leaders. So they are the ones who are setting the tone in the field, doing the hard work, making these connections. Because if I come into the field, it's that white woman thing. It's a white, and I don't speak their language. I don't understand their cultures all the time. I don't understand what's happening all the time. Mashrib, he's a male, he's Nepali. He is, and I will say this, he's from the highest caste and class in Nepal. And he himself will immediately be looked upon like, I have to take care of this man because he's higher caste or class. We don't want that. We want everything to be equal. And so we take a back seat, and our amazing, incredible young female colleagues, they do all the in the field work that is basically showing, doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter what education you've had growing up, it doesn't matter if you've graduated or not, because one of our young colleagues, she's never gone to university, and she's super well educated because she used to be a part of an organization, same one that we all worked for in India. She used to be a part of that organization as a beneficiary, and now she is a young person working for our organization, leading these girls and saying, look who I was exactly the same as you, marginalized, almost a child bride, many other not very good things, that she's gone through in her life. And from being a part of this ecosystem of empowerment and opportunity, today I am here showing you that you can do it too. So I think the more you let the people from the communities, whether that is, culturally, tribally, whatever it might be, ethnically, let them be the forefront. Let them really push the in the field programming, the relations, how the organization vibes. And Mashrib and I, we try our best to always be in the background. And if we are there in person together, you won't hear a peep from us about anything. Maybe to our colleagues, we talk and, say, I don't know. But to the people, unless we are just talking about things in general, commonalities and just hi, how are yous? We're not there to tell people what to do or how to do it. That is for our young female colleagues to do and lead and show that these girls have role models, show that these girls too can lead, show that these girls are equally empowered. And that is a big thing. I know that is a big thing because that's just not something that happens in anywhere that I've ever worked. You always have these, unfortunately, as they call them, the white savior organizations, and then the higher ranked people, people from that organization who are locals, but are the best educated, best upper class people who still just don't work at the localized setting. And I'm not saying everybody, because I do know many amazing organizations worldwide that are doing it really localized way, but I would say most times than not, what we have seen and why development does not work is because it's not set at a localized lens. Again, I'm off topic. So sorry.
No. This is fascinating. This is a really, really fascinating insight. And I appreciate the in-depth answers because this is an education for me. So no complaints at all. Sticking with Atoot.
Yeah.
For this one, can you explain how football is employed by the workers you have, by the boots on the ground?
Yeah, so it's really, football is almost all of our lives. We love football. Mashrib, I just need to give all the flowers to Mashrib. He is the most amazing co-founder in the world. This man is truly I call him Little Buddha because he is like Little Buddha. He just, nothing phases him. He's so peaceful. He's so heartwarming, giving. He truly is an incredible person, and everyone who's ever met him worldwide and locally, will tell you such. So Mashrib and I have been working in sport for development organizations for me 11 or 12 years now, and him 11 or 10 years. I'd have to really look back at my timelines. But this has always been our passion, is football. We love football. And he grew up in Nepal playing football in the streets. His family lived in a really, really cute area of Kathmandu, and he would just be in these narrow streets, kicking the football all day long with his friends and his cousins. And this guy could have played and been the star of the national team if, unfortunately, well, that's a whole nother story, but unfortunately, as you can imagine, FA's not the easiest. But this guy is just incredible. He's such a footballer. He's such a passionate, person, and he's learned everything from the streets. Nothing from being on a team or having any type of coaching. It's just learning from his own. Anyhow, with his own grassroots knowledge of how to learn football and how to coach football, and my own grassroots knowledge of it. And I also played it growing up. I played football growing up. However, I was a goalkeeper. And as a goalkeeper, I was trained as a goalkeeper, not as an all-around player. Thus, what I've learned through my years is all from living abroad and being obsessed with then, Euros, World Cup, Champions Leagues, Bundesliga, Serie A, all the ligas I would consume. Women's, men's, all of it I would consume. And so my own education is very grassroots in the sense where I have never been specifically taught how to be a good coach or facilitate. It's just I see what I see and I do. And then all our other colleagues are saying they're all grassroots. They've learned from the grassroots. For example, our program manager, Sharanya, she is actually an athletics athlete. She was in athletics her whole life growing up in India, and she was very, very good at that. And you take all those values, lessons, attributes that you've learned within athletics, and you can move that over to another sport. So, and then our other three young colleagues, two of them have never played football ever. It's never. And then the other one, Monica, she's the one who was a beneficiary of the organization in India prior that I worked for when some years ago, Mashrib worked for some years ago, and even Sharanya, she worked for some years ago. So we all knew Monica growing up when she was very young. And she's a fantastic footballer. She's very passionate. She's been able to learn how to be a better coach, even as a very young teenager. She went to Real Sociedad to learn how to be a coach from their coaches in a really fantastic exchange. So she's probably had the most professional coaching out of all of us, in the sense we just take what we have learned through our many years and experiences and daily practices and whatnot, and they implement those sessions on the ground. We, of course, we do, have them prepare what they want to, do for the week, because usually we have a theme throughout the week and we keep it that way. So they do prepare prior the football sessions. And to be clear, we have daily football sessions. Every single day is a football session. There is a football session from Monday to Friday. So with about 250 girls that are coming, you try to implement based on age brackets. And then one day, this age, there will be two ages playing, and unfortunately our field is an old cow paddy field. An old rice paddy field, which we have stomped down to semi equal parts, we'll say, and it's a brown piece of dirt land that we play on. It's not the biggest for sure, but we are able to facilitate 2 age group sessions within that piece of land. So every day our colleagues implement these football sessions, not just as a football session either. Everything they're teaching within the football session has many other aspects. A lot of times, what is happening within our extra educational classes, let's say they're learning the alphabet at that day, it will be implemented some way, somehow into our football sessions as well. Now, of course, other aspects of football that, aren't just sporting, but are life skills. those are also implemented in our football sessions. We want to take all the elements that we do within our other aspects of programming and reiterate and integrate those within our footballing sessions. So it's not just about football. It's about various skills and educations. And basically you can think of it as a play-based learning. And within those, our colleagues, they facilitate, we're stuck. I realized that I was just stuck there, so I'll just repeat. Our colleagues, they facilitate all these integrations within the daily football sessions of what it is we're learning in other aspects of our educational classes and our life skill workshops, and or culturally and societally relevant issues that are happening can also in ways be integrated into the football sessions. And that just can be a, stop quickly, and we're going to talk about something that we just noticed is happening because it's not really good, guys. We need to discuss what's going on here. And we might just do that really quickly. And we might, my colleagues might integrate ways of continuing the session that will make them think about what we just talked about. It's very relaxed, very fun, but it's very systematic in the ways they do it. So sometimes, we get these grant applications and they ask you for a portfolio of your footballing sessions. And we're like, we can't quantify how we do our football sessions in this, this list of this is what we do, because what we do always changes and how we do it changes. It's very much always looking through the localized lens. When you look through the localized lens and see what needs to be integrated into the sessions, it's never the same. So that's why I say allowing the experts who are in the field with the girls daily, understanding the society, understanding the issues, understanding what they go through, and allowing them to take that expertise that they have and integrate their work is so important. It's beyond important. That is why they are the absolute experts, even though maybe Nepali society would look at them and they'd be like, I don't see that you have this degree. I don't see that you have this license, this certificate. You can't quantify how amazing they are just because they don't have this or that. Come and do the work and how they do it and develop our girls. It's in the communities. It's phenomenal. And I give them all the flowers.
Such a shame that these things are often reduced to a qualification or a checklist, right? Like you say, yeah, come and watch and you'll see what we're doing and the impact we're having. It's really beautiful to hear. A couple of times I felt myself welling up a little bit. You're doing God's work and allowing others to do God's work as well in the process. And it's incredibly inspiring and humbling. It's great. It's a great comfort, I guess, in some ways, to know that everyone gets to a point in their life where they ask at some point, could I have done a little bit more here or there? So it comes as a great comfort to know that there's someone like you out there that's doing a lot to make up for the little that someone like me is doing, for example. I'm curious, one last question. I'm conscious of the time and keeping you, and you've been very generous with your time so far. Had you not gone to... It's a hypothetical, and I wonder if you ever reflect on this, given the career and impact that you've had over the past 17 or so years. Do you ever reflect on what life may have looked like had you not been packed off to Italy for that summer and your mind expanded?
Yes, very much. I've reflected on this and will continue to reflect over the years. No, it would have been a very insular life. It would have been that typical American lifestyle, get a job, probably work in a way that is very unhealthy, go getter. I mean, still today, I'm like, I overwork myself 100%, but at least the overwork is on me, right? I've put myself in that way, as to where the overwork that I would be a part of would be expected in my society, would be expected most likely. Things are definitely changing, and I love that things are changing and we're waking up that this is not healthy. But I would have been overworked, overstressed. I would have no life, probably. I would think that the US is the best. I would not have a knowledge about the greater global world, and unfortunately how a lot of the missteps the US has taken in this world affect the greater global world. It would just be, again, a regular, normal kind of way of being. And I have to reiterate how, there's so many great pluses about the US. I grew up in a very amazing, where I'm from at least, I grew up in a very amazing area. I had all the opportunities in the world. I played all the sports growing up. I loved it. Had the best time ever traveling the US for all these tournaments and whatnot. I did have good education and I had a lot of support. But you can have all that and still realize this is not necessarily the best. Is that, I think if you can challenge yourself and challenge and, your thoughts about what you've known, isn't that the best way of wanting a better society for the one you've come from? Just because things aren't good doesn't mean it can't be better, or doesn't mean that, this is not a good place to be. But I think if you see an issue and it's an issue, if you don't speak up about it, if you don't say something about it, if you don't try to find, a solution within it, then you are also a part of the issue. And so that revelation, let's say, that revelation would not have been there back if I had stayed the course. And my life would be a lot less interesting, that's for sure.
I'd have learned a lot more about Iowa had you not been sent to Italy, which we could say that for sure. Sarah, yeah, thank you so much for this. I know we first connected back in like 2021, I think, over email. World was a lot different then. So it's great for me on a personal level to actually meet you, albeit virtually, and get a much more in-depth picture on not only the work that you're doing over there, but the route that took you there. Yeah.
I would like to say I do think you would enjoy and probably learn a lot more about Atoot. I feel terrible because one of the things is we want the world to know about Atoot, right? We do, and I feel I did not do any justice of Atoot in this conversation, but I would highly suggest talking to Mashrib. And
I would love to speak to Mashrib.
And maybe even Sharanya can join, because obviously they're there together in Nepal, our program manager, Sharanya. I think you should talk to them and hear the local perspectives from them, because they are so interesting and knowledgeable and experts. I really believe you will receive such a great global perspective from them that needs to be heard in regards to so many aspects about the development world. But they also will talk a lot more about it too, and that's what we want. We want people to know about this organization. We want our girls to be a part of the world cross-culturally. That is one of our biggest things, is them knowing about the world and the world knowing about them, which otherwise would not happen. And we always love telling them about what is happening within Atoot, whether it be people coming to visit who are from across the world, from Nepal, from India, from South Asia, and or these types of things where we can say, we are talking about you, and these people in this part of the world now know all about you. And that's another learning tool for us. We go and we mark out, where is this part of the world? Let's talk about it some more. So
Yeah.
I think a conversation is warranted, and you should definitely have such with Sharanya Mashrib.
I would absolutely love to do that. A follow on. Yeah, that sounds exciting. Sign me
Okay,
up for
cool.
that, please. If you
Let's
could
do that.
introduce us, that would be
Yep.
perfect.
Okay, great.
But I'd also challenge your point. You've described Atoot perfectly and beautifully. Just with the added bonus of the context that took you there.
I think so. I think that it will be fantastic talking with them, and yeah, really, it's just across the board. It is what I like to call the most team effort with all colleagues. There's if we don't have everybody working on all different cylinders and angles, we don't have an organization that exists and a community, an ecosystem that is continuously growing. We don't have we don't have an ecosystem community that is continuously growing, and without everybody working together, it's interconnected, and there's no one way we do it with everybody's input, with everybody's feedback, and go from there. So I think it's much better to hear from others than from just me.
Absolutely, yeah. I appreciate you suggesting that, and yeah, if you can introduce us over email, perhaps we can get
Yep.
that conversation going.
But I
Nice
really
one.
appreciate you taking your time, too much time. I'm sure I
No,
took
no.
way too much time, and talking, because, like I said, our biggest thing for it too is getting our word out there. And, funding is single-handedly the most difficult aspect of this world that our grassroots organization, has to deal with. And not just ours. There are so many amazing grassroots organizations across the world making a massive difference. Football for Good organizations, sport for development organizations, other types of organizations that I know about, or friends with, or partners with, connected with. We know the impact they're making, but I could list off probably 60 organizations right now, and nobody will know about them because we're not working as what people consider a normal development organization. We're working with limited resources, limited funding, and we're getting stuff done. We are making communal development happen, and continuous grassroots long-term development at that, with not even 0.01% of the money that is out there in this world for the global development world. And it's tricky, and we want to educate people that just because you haven't heard of us, just because you haven't heard of somebody else, actually doesn't mean they aren't the ones making the most impact in their context.
Yeah, that's a very strong point to round up on there. I think that's a very good point you make. We get bombarded with information on a very small pool of these resources, right? And as you've yeah, very succinctly put it, a lot of the nitty gritty, so to speak, is being done on a much more of a granular level that's being passed by. Any way we can help in getting more eyes on Atoot, more ears in this respect, then yeah, we'll do so.
Awesome. Thank you.
Nice one. Thanks, sir. I'll leave you to your day. Thanks again for the time, and yeah, I look forward to catching up soon.
Just got a nice long pause there.
Ah, I was just saying I'll leave you to your day. Thanks again for the time. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to chatting soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been our pleasure, and well, enjoy your evening on your time.
Take it easy. Bye bye.
Cheers, mate.